Coming up next on Arizona Horizons Journalists Roundtable, the latest on Glendale's decision to cancel its arena contract with the Arizona Coyotes, and a planned payment cut to Medicaid health providers is no more. The Journalists Roundtable is next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizons Journalists Roundtable. I'm Ted Simons. Joining us tonight, Mary Jo Pitzel of the Arizona Republic, Howard Fisher of Capital Media Services, and Mike Sunnix of the Phoenix Business Journal. City of Glendale decides to cancel its arena agreement with the Arizona Coyotes, a move that was blocked today by a temporary restraining order. Mary Jo, this story never seems to end, but this was a surprise this week, wasn't it?
Yeah, the council's decision to call a meeting, which they did on fairly short notice, but within the confines of the public notice, and debate whether to cancel this contract. And it was I believe, what was a 4-2 vote to end it.
Well, look, the fact is, let's get serious here. They have been looking since the last election to do something here. This council, majority of this council, was not here when the prior council did this. They have been looking, they have been scouring through their notes, and they found this provision that says, well, this guy used to work for us, now works for the Coyotes, was involved in the Coyotes negotiation, therefore, we can cancel this within the first 3 years.
And I want to get to that law in a second here, but before we get there, back to the surprise nature of all this. I mean, everyone up to and including the Coyotes were taken aback by this.
Yeah, the Coyotes CEO and their new majority owner went and met with the mayor, Mayor Wires, and Vice Mayor Ian Hugh, some other Glendale officials that week, earlier in the week, and then suddenly they call this thing. So, and you saw Coyotes people on doing media about the draft and the offseason. There was no indication that they felt this was going to happen. But Howie's right. They were looking to renegotiate this deal. The city's been pushing for a number of months to renegotiate the terms. They're losing money on this deal. They send $15 million a year to the team. They don't get enough money back in terms of revenue sharing or sales tax to the city's liking. And so they've been looking for a reason. And this was they went to this kind of nuclear option of tearing up the deal.
And now, again, this law, this conflict of interest law, contract can be terminated within 3 years if someone who helps draft or create the contract for one side winds up going to work for the other side.
Yeah. The purpose behind a law like that is to make sure that if you're the city council and you're relying on employee A for good advice, for the best advice, negotiate the best deal, and to make sure that employee A hasn't had some back channel discussions with the other side that, hey, once we get this contract signed, you can come to work here. So there's a good reason for it. Now, the law doesn't specify to what extent that person has to be involved in the contract to have to prove any sort of purposeful misleading, and that's where it's going to get real interesting.
It centers around Craig Tendall, who was city attorney for a number of years, worked on some of these various Coyotes deals that came through while the team was owned by the NHL. But the timeline is kind of murky on this too. He got pushed out. He resigned in February of 2013. The deal was consummated by the council in June, and he went to work for the team in August of 2013. So the team's going to argue, hey, this guy wasn't even here. You don't see his name on the documents. The city's going to come back and say, hey, Tendall worked on a lot of these Coyotes deals, and some of the framework of the deal they just tore up were in these other deals, and so he had an influence on this deal, even though he might not have been employed still. He was getting severance from the city during the time when the council approved this, so that's kind of a gray area that the courts are going to have to decide.
But doesn't this also fall within that 3-year time frame that the state law requires?
Right, yeah, exactly. It was 2013, and now we're 15, and they're probably thinking something's got to happen because, again, they're losing money out there. They're losing money with the Coyotes there. The question is, how much money are they going to lose if the Coyotes leave?
Well, that presumes that's the end game. I mean, certainly the Coyotes could pack up. We've heard talk. The mayor of Phoenix said, hey, maybe we could make a little deal downtown here.
Actually, he's being very careful not to say that, but
he's sort of playing all around the thing. It may be that the end game is some new deal. Mike suggested this too, where you're not losing $11 million a year. Oh, I'm going to make it up on volume. Well, there's only so much you can make up on volume of people going after the game over to Westgate to get a beer or something like that and paying sales tax. And I think that may be the real end game.
Well, and it seems obvious what's going on here. As Howie said, Glendale either wants out of this contract or they want to negotiate a new contract, and they've really gone pretty hard to get this done. Have they gone so hard that even if there's a new contract negotiated, no one's going to have any faith that this thing's going to hold, that the Coyotes are going to stay? The well's been poisoned, hasn't it?
Well, I think there's a lot of indications that it has. They're going to be in court fighting each other. You know, how are they going to come back and strike a new deal? When this ownership group bought it, and the other groups that tried to buy it had the same deal. They needed a subsidy from the city. They needed this $15 million arena management fee. Other people call it a subsidy in order to get financing from a private equity group and from the NHL to help do the deal. And they came up with some of their own money. But these arena deals, as this one with the Coyotes, was part and parcel of them being able to even buy the team and get financing. So you're taking this away, and if you take this away to a large extent, even if something comes back, how do they make the numbers work? And you got Quebec City, you got Vegas, you got Seattle, you got Portland, Oregon, Kansas City, all sitting out there wanting a team. And when these cities want teams like this, they're often easy to bargain with versus Glendale, where you got a majority of the council that has no investment in this arena, like
quickly,
the past folks.
Do we have a majority? Do they know what they're voting on out there?
Well, there was some confusion during the vote. It was a 5-2 vote. There was one council member that people thought he was going to vote no. He voted yes. There's a majority of the council, including the mayor and the city attorney and some of the management out there, that aren't as invested in the arena like Elaine Scruggs and this past administration that built the arena and wanted to see Westgate. So I don't know if Glendale's going to go to the mat to even keep it even halfway on this. They may be ready to say, we're tired of throwing good money after bad.
Well, and this gets to the larger issue, which is, and you know what a sports fan I am, Ted, why are we using taxpayer money for fairly profitable teams? Now, I can't say I looked at the Coyotes books and whether they can make money or not on this, but when you've got money being spent on football, basketball, baseball, hockey, to bring folks here. When we decide the way we're going to get the NFL here is through the Super Bowl, well, we've got to give them the sales tax back. I'm not sure that in the long run this pencils out because teams move on. We're stuck with large, empty stadiums. Look what's happened in other cities. And so the question still becomes, does this make sense?
Jerry Weyers, mayor of Glendale, used to be a state lawmaker at the Capitol. What was he like? Was he considered a tough bargainer? Was he a guy that would throw something out there at the last second and watch everyone jump and shout?
No, I mean, when he was chairman of the Rules Committee, he would hold bills up, and he was also probably most famously known for leveraging his colleagues in the legislature to say, hey, I need you to help me fundraise for the Shriners. And in fact, he even went so far as to say, if people in Glendale are upset with me, they can bid on a chance to tase me, take out their anger by tasing me, if you give the winning bid, and money will go to the Shriners.
So not necessarily known as the hard bargainer or someone who would come out of the blue with something.
But he did walk into a city that had a lot of debt. That this has been a history of sort of bad deals, or in terms of it's not penciling out for the city.
Yes.
And he wanted to end it.
Well, understand, this is part of the reason that the change in the council, now you have the city supporting the Tohono O'odham out there, because I think part of what they realize is, look, we fought them for years now, and we've lost in court, and lost in court, and lost in court, and maybe we should be on the winning side. We actually are bringing in money. And there's a whole sea change of attitudes out there in the council.
Well, I think the mayor is fiscally conservative, and I think there's a lot of sentiment that, from Howie's point about subsidizing sports teams. The mayor had a very public spat with Michael Bidwell and the Cardinals and the NFL over the Super Bowl. They moved events out of Glendale before the game, had them downtown Phoenix, and Glendale kind of feels for the Super Bowl and other events that we built these things, we invest these things, but we're the ones losing all the money on these things because the fans for the Super Bowl stayed in Scottsdale, stayed in downtown Phoenix, didn't come out there. The Coyotes it's always been a bad deal for them. It's always been a challenge because of the location of the arena for getting fans out there, especially for weeknight games. And all this uncertainty, the Coyotes argue today, all this uncertainty continues to hurt the business model even more because you're not going to have season ticket holders or sponsors or suite buyers step forward when they think the team's going to move in a season.
What does it do to the city of Glendale's reputation if folks think that they signed an agreement a couple of years ago and now they're voiding it? it?
Well, there's kind of a narrative out there about all the bad deals, how we reference this, all the bad deals, the risk-taking, some of them sweetheart deals that the Glendale has inked with folks. Westgate was foreclosed on when Steve Ellman owned it. They had a souring relationship with Jerry Moyes. The Camelback Ranch deal with the Dodgers and the White Sox, they've really taken a beating. That's actually a way worse deal than the Coyotes deal. They have so much debt on that, they're not getting any revenue out of that deal. So it's all this kind of dysfunction. They lost their city manager. They've gone through a lot of staff. So there's an easy narrative, look at Glendale and say, you guys don't know what you're doing. What's
going to be interesting to see is what happens at the preliminary injunction stage. Now, a temporary restraining order is a real simple thing. Doesn't even require a hearing. The judge looks at irreparable harm and balance of hardships, and it's real easy to say Glendale's not hurt if we keep them from voiding the contract. Now, preliminary injunction gets interesting because among the things the judge has to decide at that stage, and this will be within weeks, is the likelihood of success by either party. And so we will know very soon what the judge thinks of this whole deal.
Get a hint there, yeah. And that's June 29th, I think. And then executive session for the Glendale City Council next Tuesday?
Yeah, next Tuesday they'll meet and kind of craft out their next steps. I think they need to send an official letter, a Dear John, a breakup letter to, or text to the Coyotes. And there's this audit that's been going on. Glendale requested an audit last year of the Coyotes through the deal. This thing has dragged on almost a year now. They've had a hard time getting information. And I think they're scouring through that to see how the Coyotes ownership, how they've allocated money, if they were fairly doing the revenue sharing that was in the deal that the city benefits from, and whether there's any other causes there.
So did I see Ed Beasley, former city manager out there? Is he now at Ferguson?
He is interim city manager in Ferguson, Missouri.
Right.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. All right, we'll just move on from there, shall we? Planned Medicaid payment cut, this idea of 5% payment cut to Medicaid and healthcare providers. This plan is no more. What's going on here?
Well, this was a part of the budget deal back in March, and to help make the state budget balance, the the governor proposed a 3% cut in the reimbursement rate for people who provide health care services through Access. The legislature upped that to 5%, and the providers just screamed. I mean, it was tough. They said they couldn't afford to take that kind of a cut. And then there was always the question of, you can't just cut that rate, the 5%, which the legislature did approve and Ducey signed off on, without the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare approving it. That hadn't even happened, and then all of a sudden we get this announcement from the agency saying, you know what, we've seen some declining enrollments, we're saving some money here, so we think we can cinch our belts, get that 5% savings without taking it out of our healthcare providers.
What's really going on here, Howie?
Well, look, we've seen this a lot. First of all, there's a little more money in the state budget. We've talked about this around the table. But it's amazing what happens when cooler heads say, now wait a second, we're not only endangering doctors saying we're not going to take Access patients, but the federal money that's supposed to come in, the match, and all of a sudden people are saying, we're going to what?
But the matching, that was known, was it not, that the matching funds would go away?
It was known, but somehow we're only concerned about our little portion of it. And suddenly, somebody, the adults in the room said, well, you mean there's really no way we can make this happen? And I think that's a lot of what happened.
Well, what I'm hearing is that the providers have been very quiet about this announcement. There is some concern that since this was just an agency decision, we still have a law on the books that says you're supposed to cut 5%. So will the legislature go back and invoke that at some point? I mean, your revenues are ticking up, so I think the budget's looking okay, but you never know.
Well, remember, there's another shoe to drop out there. They also passed a law that says we're supposed to ask the federal government to impose work requirements and lifetime limits and everything else, stuff that the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare are not going to approve. But this is the kind of attitude, and this is also an anti-welfare, anti-Obama argument, and so it's just a way of getting at that. And that doesn't even get into the Affordable Care Act.
But can this be seen as the governor saying, I changed my mind?
Sure.
Being flexible?
Yeah.
Not being imperial, as we've heard?
Yeah. The hospitals are an influential lobby down there. They're a big sector in this state, and they've had often hot and cold relationships with previous governors. And so I think maybe their strategy here maybe worked out for them. And certainly this shows that the revenue picture improving is impacting some policy and fiscal decisions.
All right. Supreme Court, Arizona Supreme Court rules on charter schools. This is the idea that charters should get the same as district schools. Well, it didn't rule on this. It basically said the lower court, good enough, let's move on.
Here's the issue. charter schools are public schools in Arizona. They can be run by for-profit or not-for-profit organizations. And this goes back to the 90s, and Arizona's got one of the most active charter school movements in the nation. A lot of kids in there. Every kid, there's a certain amount of money that follows each kid. Public schools get additional money for certain sorts of capital and books, plus they have access to local tax revenues. Charter schools don't, because there's no local tax base, there's no school district. So they sued, and they figured they should be getting another $1,200 per student. It comes out about $135 million. And they said there's an equal protection argument. And what the Court of Appeals said, and the Supreme Court upheld, is no, these are two different kinds of schools. You're ignoring a couple of facts. Number one, you're not subject to the same regulations. You don't have the administrative rules. You can hire and fire at will. And number two, nobody's forcing a parent to send their child to a charter school. You make that voluntary decision.
So I would look for legislation next session to perhaps increase the funding for charter schools. They're already chafing because the budget that takes effect in July cuts this thing called the small school weight. So it's additional funding for schools that have fewer than 600 students. And that money is going to be phased out. That's going to hurt primarily charter schools, but also some smaller
and charter schools are a very popular group down at the legislature. Yeah. There's a lot of legislatures over the years that have worked for charter school groups, and there's a lot of support within the Republican majority down there for charter schools. And I do think you'll see a number of bills to try to even this out and stuff.
But here's the problem: it may get in the way of the plan that the governor announced a couple of weeks ago, where you want to tap the trust, ask voters to tap the trust fund, and that money, that $300 per student, is supposed to go into the base and equally. So in other words, if we're going to put $300 into public schools, we're going to put $300 per student in charter schools. You start monkeying with that base. You start saying, but we're going to give away to the charter schools. The whole thing could blow up. And I think the governor cares more about the trust lands than he does about anything else with the charter schools. And he doesn't want anything to screw with this plan.
Was the Supreme Court decision a surprise?
You know, frankly, I don't know.
Yeah.
No, because the Court of Appeals was very clear. It was a unanimous decision of the Court of Appeals.
Okay.
They were very clear. Judge Downey, sketched out exactly all the reasons, and it's an uphill fight for the charter schools.
All right. Who is Sean Marquez, and why is he saying such nasty things about the governor?
Sean Marquez is the former acting director of this very well-known State Department of Weights and Measures, which you've probably never heard of until tonight. And he was moved out of the position, as is the governor's prerogative, when Ducey became governor. It was done quietly. There wasn't even a press release, that I recall about it. But last month, the governor stood up at a meeting of the Republican National Committee and made a big to-do about, hey, I got rid of this former director because he was going to do a sting on rideshare services during the Super Bowl, and that would have been terrible and horrible, and I got rid of this guy, and now he's in the private sector. And that chafed Mr. Marquez, who didn't want to talk at first, but the more he thought about it, the looser his tongue got, and off he went.
And what's great, and this was a great story by Mary Jo, if you look at the emails, and you look at the back and forth, there is no evidence that there was some pre-Super Bowl sting planned. Now, Sean Marquez, who was a carryover from the prior administration, because he was a deputy director, was doing the bidding of the Brewer administration, which is, Arizona law says, and continues to say today, if you offer rides.
We talked about this. He was basically doing his job.
Yes, I know, but he was doing it perhaps too well.
But was he doing it, with all these emails out, was he doing it too well?
I think the question of, let's assume for argument's sake he was not planning a sting, but he never backed off of the idea that he wants to enforce laws that say if you offer rides for money, taxi, Uber, Lyft, that you have certain insurance and certain background checks. And that's in fact what the department was charged by the legislature with doing until Doug Ducey said, not so much.
Uber and Lyft, this is Ducey's favorite companies. He was at the ribbon cutting for the announcement of Uber's got a big center here, 300 jobs downtown, and he's touted this. This is part of this, the speed of business. He's very pro-business, and he sees this as more of an innovative business venture than something that needs to be regulated. And this is the agency that over the last weekend got hacked by the Islamic, the Middle East cyber army and was down for. So it stays in the news, the weights and measures.
Well, and it got hacked by this. Is the new director, Mr. Tobin, is he even going to build it back up? Aren't they supposed to fold that?
It went back up today.
Did it really? Okay,
Yeah,
'cause I thought they were going to fold that into another agency.
Well, it's going to be
correct?
part of the department. Much of it's going to be part of the Department of Agriculture. Pieces out, I think, to Department of Health Services or DPS. But the fact is that, yeah, end of the year, there will be no Department of Weights and Measures. Now, the thing that we're all watching for is, will all the important things that Weights and Measures does be done? For example, the reason you no longer have the price on the top of cans in that purple ink is the retailers cut a deal. We will say you don't have to price them, but you have to have accurate scanners. It's up to Weights and Measures to make sure we're all not getting shafted at the register.
And real quickly, you know, most folks remember that Weights and Measures was one of Governor Meekham's one of his early priorities was to get that in line. He was very I just thought it.
Yeah, it's a
little
big,
historical footnote there.
It's a big consumer protection thing.
Yes.
And actually, in that vein of historical footnote, the Weights and Measures director who was in office at the time that Fife Symington became governor, he had a rather public dispute with the new governor as well. So I think we're following in a fine tradition.
Just for the record, though, and from your story, Mr. Marquez said that the governor made the whole thing was made up, was the quote, and he took the coward's way out.
Yes, very strong words. Now,
Yes.
the governor's office stands by the governor's comments made last month. They note, now that we've seen a lot of the email correspondence that's gone back and forth, that they think that this shows, well, at least he had sting in his heart, and certainly.
What is that? Is that like lusting in my heart?
Back to Jimmy Carter.
My words, not
more
the,
historical footnotes here that perhaps we don't want to look at. All right, the Chamber of Commerce. We'll go to you, Howie, as we always do on this stuff. The Chamber of Commerce and Industry says just say no to marijuana legalization.
You know, this is fascinating because this is really not a business issue. Maybe just the dispensaries aren't paying their dues as chamber members, but they've come out with a study and say somehow it's going to lead to less worker productivity and it's bad, and look what happened in Colorado. You know, I don't know why they decided to wade in, other than the fact that the governor has come out against legalization, and they've been doing a little butt kissing with the
Republican
governor.
establishment, the county attorneys, Montgomery and Polk, the Republican Party, the state parties against it, and I think you'll see the kind of the conservative. And what happened when medical marijuana passed, there was not any opposition, really. The Cardinals gave some money, but there wasn't that kind of organized kind of Republican conservative opposition to it. And suddenly, wow, it passed. And but the sentiment in the country is for legalization. It's legal in 4 states in D.C., California, Nevada, us, several others, and so I think the chamber's like doing this business argument that's going to cause more workplace claims, injuries, workers' compensation.
Well, and again,
it could help snack food sales. I mean,
yes, it could. The tax windfalls. They said they have done studies, and they've seen studies. Tax windfalls far less than expected. Criminal justice costs would be minimal because few locked up. That sort of thing.
Well,
they're basically discrediting every study and survey out there that says this is either going to be a good thing for a state or not such a bad thing.
Well, but it ignores the reason that you legalize marijuana for recreation. First of all, we have recreational marijuana now. I have a pain in my back, doctor. Here's the script. This comes down to a personal liberty issue. It's a libertarian issue. Why do you think you have people, like Rand Paul talking about it? And you're down to the question of, should I have the right, if I can go out and get wasted at the bar up here on First Street and drive home probably illegally, as opposed to sitting home and just getting wasted watching Horizon while I'm stoned on TV.
God bless you.
Yes. The fact is, this is a personal liberty issue, and I think a lot of people see it that way.
Okay, so there are likely going to be 2 propositions on the ballot. Or
No,
you
big piece.
You think so? Okay,
Yeah.
so just one then?
I think we'll have one, and I do think that the chamber's opposition, as Mike was pointing out, is just sort of building an early firewall, or they're attempting to build an early firewall against what might be a popular movement.
Pop quiz. Is this thing going to pass?
it'll pass.
You think so?
Yes.
Even with all the money against it?
Yeah, I think
a lot of money
I
there.
think the sentiment in the country is more liberal on issues like this, and I think it'll pass. We've already opened the door with medical marijuana. It hasn't had any adverse reactions. I think it passes.
I don't think it'll pass. I think that the fact is that the longer this lays around, people are confused. They tend to vote no, and I think that's going to be a real problem for them.
One thing I'll add,
If Rand Paul's a GOP nominee, perhaps.
Okay, but there we go. perhaps to end the show.
Yes.
Good to have you all here. Thanks for joining us. Monday on Arizona Horizon, Phoenix Children's Hospital earns high praise from a national report. And we'll speak to the author of a book that chronicles the history of the Bill of Rights. That's Monday at 5:30 and 10 on the next Arizona Horizon. Tuesday, Arizona Department of Child Safety Director Greg McKay will join us. Wednesday, it's time again for renowned physicist Lawrence Krauss to discuss the latest science news. Thursday, we'll be joined by Arizona Secretary of State Michelle Reagan. And Friday, it's another edition of the Journalists Roundtable. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great weekend.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of 8, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.